Welcome to another Math Monday. This week we'll be focusing on the creamy beef and noodles recipe that serves 4 people. This week, Level 1 was challenged with creating a recipe that serves 2 people. The original yield of the recipe was 4. So this group needs to multiply the entire recipe times 1 over 2. So if we start with the 2 tablespoons of butter, we have 2 over 1 times 1 over 2, 2 over 2, which equals 1 tablespoon. We are going to lump the next 4 items or ingredients together, the ground beef, the onion, the pepper, and the sour cream, because the original yield on all 4 of these is 1. So for each of these we have 1 over 1 times 1 over 2, and we get 1/2. So we have half a pound of ground beef, we have half an onion, half a green pepper, and a half a cup of sour cream. Now our stewed tomatoes, we need 16, it says 1 16-ounce can, so we're going to start with 16 ounces times 1 over 2, and we get 16 over 2, which can be reduced to 8 ounces. Our mushrooms, the same thing, 4 over 1 times 1 over 2 is equal to 4 over 2, which can be reduced to 2 ounces. Our water, again, is the same as the one up there, so we have 1 cup of water. Our sugar is, again, 1 teaspoon comes down to half of a teaspoon. The salt, we started with 2 teaspoons. So to multiply that or divide that in half, we have 2 over 2, which is the same as saying 1 teaspoon. The dill weed is the same, 1 teaspoon of dill weed. And our last ingredient for this group is the 8 ounces of noodles times 1 over 2, and you get 8 over 2, which can be reduced to 4 ounces of noodles. Our Level 2 challenge is to create a recipe that serves 8 people. So going off of the original recipe that serves 4, we need to multiply the recipe, each ingredient, by 2 over 1. Starting with the butter, we originally had 2 tablespoons of butter times 2 over 1. So we have 4 tablespoons, which we know is 1/4 of a cup. So we do need to reduce that. Our ground beef, our onion, our green pepper, and our sour cream, that was all 1 to start. So we have 1 over 2 for each of, we have 1 over 1 for each of these times 2 over 1. And we get 2 pounds of ground beef, we have 2 onions, 2 green peppers, and 2 cups of sour cream. Now for our stewed tomatoes, we have 16 ounces over 1 times 2 over 1. So we get 32 ounces of stewed tomatoes. For our mushrooms, we have 4 ounces over 1 times 2 over 1. And we get 8 ounces of mushrooms. Our 1 cup, again, we already did our 1 cup, but just for a reminder, 1 over, I don't know why I keep doing 1 over 2. 1 over 1 times 2 over 1. We get 2 cups of water. We have 2 teaspoons of sugar. Our salt, we started with 2 teaspoons. We're doubling that. So we have 4 teaspoons of salt, which we could also say is 1, I will write it over on the left-hand side. We could also say that that's 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon. Now our last dill weed is the same. We started with 2 teaspoons, so we could say it's 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon to keep it nice and simple. And our noodles, we started with 8 over 1 times 2 over 1, and we get 16 ounces of noodles. This group's challenge was to find the middle ground between the baseline of a recipe that serves 4 and the recipe that serves 8, with their challenge being serving 6 people. So what they need to do is they will need to multiply the entire recipe by 3 over 2, which is the equivalent of 1/2. So they need to cook 1 1/2 times the entire recipe. With the butter, we started with 2 tablespoons, and we need to multiply that by 3 over 2, and we get 6 over 2, which is the equivalent to 3 tablespoons. Our ground beef, onion, green pepper, and sour cream, remember we always do those 4 together because it's always 1. So we have 1 over 1 times 3 over 2, and we get 3 over 2. So we need 1.5 pounds of ground beef, 1.5 onions, 1.5 green peppers, and 1.5 cups of sour cream. Now our stewed tomatoes, we can just do 16 over 1 times 3 over 2, and we get 48 over 2, which is the equivalent of 24. Sorry, my Z doesn't really fit. 24 ounces. Our mushrooms, we start with 4 ounces. I mean, realistically, with both the onion or the tomatoes and the mushrooms, we could just say 1.5 cans of stewed tomatoes, 1.5 cans of sliced mushrooms. But I'd really like to challenge you guys with being able to do the fraction math. So we start with 4 over 1 and multiply it by 3 over 2, which is again 1/2, 12 over 2, which if we reduce is 6 ounces. The water, the 1 cup, we already did that, so we know it's 1.5 cups of water. Sugar, again, we did that, so it's 1.5, but remember our units, we always need to include those. Teaspoons. Salt, we started with 2 teaspoons times, 3 over 2, and we get 6 over 2. So we end up with 3 teaspoons of salt, which we know is 1 tablespoon. Our last 2 ingredients, we already know the dill weed, it's the same as the salt, so it's 1 tablespoon. And our noodles, we started with 8 over 1 times 3 over 2, and we get 24 over 2, which if we reduce that, we get 12 ounces. This final challenge will take our original recipe yield of 4 and multiply the entire recipe by 3 over 1 to create a recipe that will serve 12 individuals. Our first ingredient is that 2 tablespoons of butter. So we have 2 over 1 times 3 over 1 equals 6 tablespoons, which we also know we can reduce to 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons. We always want to reduce as much as we can. Our ground beef, well, we know we have 1 pound is also 16 ounces. So if we just multiply 16 times 3, we end up with 48 ounces of beef, or 3 pounds. Our onion, green pepper, and sour cream, we are just going to take 1 times 3 because we're tripling the recipe. So we have 3 onions, 3 green peppers, and 3 cups of sour cream. Our stewed tomatoes, we can just take 16 times 3. Again, we already did that one, so we have 48 ounces of our stewed tomatoes. Our mushrooms, we start with 4 ounces times 3 equals 12 ounces of our mushrooms. The water we already did, 1 times 3 is 3 cups of water. Our sugar, 1 teaspoon times 3 is 3 teaspoons, but we know we can reduce that to 1 tablespoon. Our salt, we started with 2 teaspoons times 3. We get 6 teaspoons, which we know is 2 tablespoons. The dill weed is the same exact measurement as the salt, so we can just skip right over that one. And our noodles, we have 8 ounces originally times 3, and we end up with 24 ounces of uncooked narrow noodles. And this concludes our math lesson for this week. I'd just like to say to all of you out there, nicely done. Enjoy the rest of your week. Mrs. Johnson.